Alright guys, so this video is going to be about how to keep your shop vac or any wet dry vac, because they're all pretty much the same thing, operating efficiently and keeping your suction good. Today we're going to be changing out the air filter, which normally I would just clean it and be done with it, but this is a 2-year-old vacuum and the air filter as well is about 2 years old. And I decided, because I'm using this thing a lot, to go with this reusable filter. Basically you just rinse off all the old stuff, and I don't know if it filters any better, but it's not made out of paper like that one is that's in there. You guys will see that in a minute. And then I'm also going to be putting a new bag in it. I'm also going to explain to you guys why it's important to run these bags. But first, let's go ahead and open this thing up and clean out all the inside. So to open it, just take that back, take that other one back, and then lift up. As you can see, I'm not running a bag inside of it. But we do have our old filter right here. I'll get to the why there's no bag in that in a minute. And this is our old filter. Why it's got all this dirt and dust around it is because I'm not running a bag in this vacuum. I had just recently pulled out the bag that was in there. It was all full and I didn't have any extras, so I went out and bought some more, but I have used it in between the time when I bought the new ones and took the old one out. So I knew I was going to replace this filter anyways with a reusable one, so I wasn't really too worried about it. But the whole point of this filter is a secondary part of filtration. When you have these bags in your vacuum, any sort of styled shop vac, that filters out a lot of the dirt and dust that would otherwise appear all around here. Because instead of all the dirt and dust going into a bag and staying there, every time you're using your vacuum, it swirls it all around inside of the drum. That's why that ends up happening, and why it's always important, if you are running your vacuum in this style of setup without a bag in it, to constantly clean this thing out after every time you use it. Now, you definitely do want to run a filter on your shop vac all the time, because if you're not, all of this stuff is going to get into your motor and you're going to fry your motor. So anyways, so how you go ahead and remove one of these, so you just pull back this big cap here, and then you have your filter itself, and you can service these. It's not really, not really the easiest to do, and it does get messy. But basically what you do is you just pound it out a little bit harder on a garbage can. Then you can go through the pleats with a vacuum cleaner, hopefully you have another one, and clean it out that way. But more often than not, you can get away with just knocking them out and doing that. But as I said, this is an old filter, and I knew I was going to replace it anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. So we have here the new filter. There's that cap. And there's the new washable filter. And it also comes with cleaning instructions. You guys can pause that if you want to read it. So basically you just install this thing the same way you took the old one out. And with that said, go ahead and grab your new filter. Install it. And then go ahead and put your cap back on, tighten it down. Now that's good and tight. So in the event that you do need to service this thing, just go ahead and pull that off, remove it, service it, clean it off, and reinstall it. These filters are a little bit more pricey than these ones are. These I think go for about 12 bucks from my Lowe's. But this one was about 30. Now some of you I know are going to ask or make the point to comment that why not just buy a new vacuum? These are cheap vacuums. Well, comparatively speaking, yes they are. This shop vac I got on sale 2 years ago for 40 bucks. I don't remember if I bought it on a Black Friday sale or if it was a 4th of July sale. I honestly don't remember. But I got the thing for 40 bucks. Brand new, these go for 70. Now, I plan on keeping this thing around for a while. The motor in it runs good still, and for a set of bags and that filter was a little over 40 bucks. So I'm not really too worried about that. some people would just go out and spend, you know, close to $80 after tax on a new vacuum. I'm cheap. I don't like spending money if I don't have to. That's that. This thing has been a great little vacuum. I've been completely satisfied with it, actually. I meant to do a review on it years ago when I first got it, but I actually forgot. And so we do have a little bit of dirt and grime down there. So I'll go ahead and dump all that out off camera before I throw the new bag in. And so for this particular vacuum, this is a 10-gallon shop-vac, so we're using the 5 to 10-gallon style. It's a double R style. And these are nice because they're a little bit better than the standard stock vacuum bags that you get when you first buy the vacuum. Now with this one, you also get this really nice lift handle to lift it out, and installing these is really easy. All you do is grab this little doodad here, and if it confuses you, just go ahead and look at the instructions. But it's very simple. You just grab this, stick it through, and just push both of the edges through so it's nice and flat. This cardboard is important because when you put it in your vacuum, it basically just goes in like this. Very simple to change these things out. They're definitely worth it just as general and routine maintenance. Looks like that part's not on all the way because you see the green part of the handle here needs to go in as well. I almost stuck it in without it. So make sure that's lined up on both sides and go ahead and push it down. Check and make sure your bag isn't going to come off. And there you go. That's how you change your bag. Another little bit of a life hack, I guess you could say, is throw your new bag in with it at the bottom. So then the next time you have to change it out, it's there, and you don't have to worry about trying to find it if you're bad with losing some things. So now we can go ahead and make sure that everything is nice and good here to our liking. Check your filter one last time, make sure it's not going to fall off when you put it in there. Now one point I do want to make to talk about is when you first try and put this back on, the black mount part that attaches into the bag, you want to make sure that's down all the way. That's nice and even in here, or you're going to have a hard time getting this back in. So go ahead and throw the motor back on if you had to remove it. And while you reinstall the motor, just make sure that the filter itself is in the middle and the bag is wrapping around it. Throw it back on. And there you have it. So let's plug it in and see what happens. And there's one last thing I want to show you guys before I end this video. Is one part that's often overlooked by everybody is your hose and your attachments. So with all your attachments, you just want to look through and make sure there's no dust or dirt that's stuck in there making a clog. And both of these tubes look fine, as well as my brush attachment. Got a little bit there, but that's not a clog. Not worried about that. Now there's also another trick to messing with one of these. Some of these, like the one that's on this Hoover, you can see through. So it's not really that big of a deal when you're checking them. But these are kind of a little bit more tricky. What you want to do is you want to stick a dime or a nickel or a little bit of change down there and shake it out. Not even really shake it out, but just drop it. See if it goes out on its own. What that tells you is if you don't see that change coming out the other side, you have a clog in this hose somewhere, and it's very common that these things can clog up with stuff, especially with shop-vacs. Shop-vacs will pick up just about anything that can fit inside of one of these holes. And what often clogs them up is if you're doing woodworking or anything with kind of like a fibrous material, something like a stick or a piece of wood can get lodged in here a certain way at an angle, and what it does is just over time it just keeps on building up and building up with more dirt and dust and everything else. If it doesn't clog right away, eventually it will. So that's one thing you always got to check, and I'll do that off camera, throw this thing back on and start it up for you guys. And so I threw this thing down there a couple times, had no issues. This is the shaft that goes onto the end of a Kirby vacuum motor for the belt to rest on. But that's what I used. You can use anything as long as it's heavy and not too long. So now just to go ahead and reattach. And so now Definitely feels a lot better. Definitely works good enough for me. I'm happy with that. No reason to buy a new vacuum if you don't have to. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope this saved some of you guys some money. And you all stay classy.